We're off.
So welcome to this webinar. Today we'll talk about the silent and invisible learners online and how to give guidance and counseling for this kind of learners online. This webinar is organized by NVL Distance Workgroup or Network in cooperation with their Nord Plus project called Lurkers, is Lurking Working, and together with Ottawa Nopisto, which is Ottawa Folk High School in Finland. My name is Taru Kekkonen. I work as an e-learning manager at Ottawa Folk High School, and I work very closely together with our online guidance counselors. But the real experts, they're participating in this webinar today, our guidance counselors, but most of them chose to be silent learners today, not invisible, but silent learners today. But they're there and they have promised to correct me on the chat if I talk something that is not true or something totally strange. This recording is being recorded, and the link to the recording will be sent to all of you after the webinar, and it will also be made public so anybody can see it, which means that all your comments and whatever you write in the chat will be in the recording, visible in the recording as well. So just for you to know. You are very welcome to participate in the chat at every time of this webinar. I know that I'm quite talkative, so when I get to talk, I might not notice that there are questions or comments in the chat, but my colleague Mia is there, who has promised to take care of the chat and also say aloud if there's something that needs to be said aloud during the webinar. And then after the presentation that I'm just going to give you, we will have some more time to discuss together. I will now change the layout so your screen will change. Don't panic, nothing serious happens. But this way we are able to see the presentation, which is now at the end. Somebody has gone through that, I think. So I will scroll back to the first slide. Just a second. So there we are at the beginning. Like I said, I work for Ottawa Folk High School. We are a quite established and old folk high school. We were established already back in 1892, and we've been online since 1997. So that's quite a long history with the internet as well, being on the internet and being online as a school. So I will first tell a bit about our school to give you the context so that we are on the same map so that you know from which context I'm telling these stories. So I'm using our school as an example. We have online upper secondary school for adults and online comprehensive school for adults. And they are both online, which means that all our students are studying online. They are scattered around Finland and the whole world, actually. And most of our students we never meet face to face. But still, they are not anonymous. We know our students. We get to know them because the studying usually takes from 2 to 4 years. So they spend a longer period of time with us and we get to know them. Some of them better, some of them not so well, but they are not just names or email addresses on the list, but they are real people, and we try our best to take good care of them. Quite many of our students want to study quite independently. Some of them don't want to work very much together with other students. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them. So we could say that they're all playing their own instrument, but they are still playing in the same band, and they have told us that it's important for them to know and have the feeling that they belong to a group, even if they might be studying quite independently and quite, so to say, silently. This picture, for example, it's a real picture of our students, not of our online students, but our former students from the other program in our Folk High School. We have more than 1,000 students, and they all have a reason why they have chosen the online studies. There are some of the reasons. Quite many of them are related to work, or then related to geography, long distances to the local school. And some of them, the reasons are related to their life situation and family and so on. But quite many are also related to health problems or then negative school history. So it's a vast variety of students. And among them are, of course, quite active students who participate in everything that we arrange, also online. But then there's also quite a lot of students who are so-called silent learners or almost invisible learners. They might do their tasks and they might do quite okay in their studies, but they don't participate in anything that we arrange for them, or that other students arrange for each other's discussions or anything like that. It might be due to, for example, due to negative school history. So, for example, if they were bullied at school, they might be, and they quit their earlier school because of that, they dropped out, and now they have come to continue their studies online. It might be that they are quite shy or nervous or stressed, and it might be difficult for them to trust other people, and might be difficult for them to interact with others. So we never know very much about the background of the students. So we think that it's very important to respect also the fact if somebody decides and wants to study on their own and not participate in all the events and occasions. And even if they are all adults, our students are adults, it doesn't mean that they could do all on their own. So it's not enough to offer them the learning platform and offer them the learning assignments and the learning materials, and then say that, okay, try to manage and we'll see in 3 years. It doesn't work like that. But we have noticed that they need a lot of support and a lot of guidance. That's why we have increased the number of guidance counselors over the years. At the moment, there are 8, I think. And you can see some of our current guidance counselors there in the picture. And their job is to be there for our students. They put a lot of effort on creating a safe atmosphere for the students, and to create the feeling of being there for them, being present, even if working from a distance. They are putting a lot of effort on creating the feeling of being present while online. This quotation there on the black background is a direct quotation from one of our students. He or she says that the guidance counselor and the teachers are encouraging and supportive. And for an adult learner, a supportive environment is, of course, not a key factor, but it is still important. So our students, they really value the support that they get, and they are worth it, and they have earned it. We are using various communication channels for the interaction with our students. And we have this idea that, well, we have the learning environment with all the learning materials and the learning assignments and so on and so forth, and the discussion forums there. But we think that it might be a good idea to let the students decide which communication channel to use, for example, for the guidance. So if they are more familiar with Skype, for example, if they're using it anyway, so why should we force the students to come, for example, to our learning environment to communicate there if they're more familiar and natural with Skype? So the discussions between the guidance counselor and the student could take place, for example, in Skype or WhatsApp or Facebook. So, for example, if there are students who really would like to talk about mathematical issues, for example. Believe me or not, we have students like that as well, which is a bit difficult for me to understand as a language person, but there are that kind of students. So if we see this interest, we either ask them where they would like to have these discussions, and if they say that it's the Facebook, then we either establish the group for them, or then which is even better, we let them establish the group themselves. So then they get the sort of feeling of ownership to the group, and then they start discussing there. So, but if we try to, because we have tried that as well, and that we try to take the discussion to some other forum, it might end. It might be totally dead there in another forum. So I think it's quite a good idea to let them choose what is more natural for them to use as a channel for communication. And I think that one story that one of our guidance counselors once told me, or told us, is also quite an important lesson to learn. She said that according to her experience, it might be difficult for the students to answer an email. If you start with an email, and even if your intention is to just start the discussion and to say like, "Hi, how are you today, and how are you doing in your studies, and is there anything I could help you with," or anything like that, then the student might feel that as it is an email that he or she should use now, he should write really a long and profound answer to the guidance counselor with all the background of his studies and what he has sort of reporting what he has been doing and maybe not doing, and reflecting on his or her own learning and so on and so forth. So he might think, or she might think, that it's too big a task, and he might not do that, not reply at all. But if the guidance counselor starts and opens the discussion, for example, with WhatsApp, if the student is using WhatsApp, because it's more an informal way of discussing. So it's more like a casual chit-chat. So the guidance counselor might send a message in WhatsApp and say that, "Hi, how are you doing today? And what have you been up to, and how are things?" Then it might already, because of the channel, feel easier to answer that kind of message, because there you don't have to tell your whole life story. The student knows that the guidance counselor is not expecting that. And then the discussion is opened in a casual way, and step by step it might get deeper and deeper, and you really got to the core points at some points. It might happen, not always, of course, but it might happen. And then it might be also that at some point they both decide, the student and the guidance counselor decide that, okay, we will start continue this discussion via email, for example. So I think it's quite important to be quite sensitive about the channel, and use the channel that is natural for the students. We once earlier we tried also Second Life for discussion, and we had the idea that we could also give guidance and counseling in Second Life. In virtual reality, I don't know how familiar you are with that, but a few years back, or several years back, it was quite somehow trendy. And we thought it might be a good idea to work there together with our students, because there you create an avatar and you speak and interact through your avatar. So we thought that it might be easier for some of our students to speak and communicate through the avatar. But then we realized that we tried it, but then we realized that it is quite difficult to use that environment. It requires a lot from the device, and you almost need to take a course to learn to use it. Alistair there is saying that Second Life was great fun. Yes, probably for quite many people, but a lot of people also regarded it as quite difficult. And also our staff was having some problems there, because some of our staff tended to have this tendency of getting rid of their clothes, for example, all of a sudden, and quite accidentally, not intentionally. And a lot of things happened there. But it never worked out very well. So we gave up on that. But I think it's also a very important lesson to learn, that you can try, and you should try various channels and things. But if it doesn't work, then you have to leave it and try something else, and not get stuck with the idea that the teachers thought it was brilliant. So if the students don't come there, then we should try something else. And Mia kept losing her hair and bumming into corridors. I have some similar experiences as well. But now I think it's time to see and listen to Anna's story. So we made a short film, and I will start the film. You don't have to do anything, but your screen will change again, so don't get scared. So that was Anna's story. I think it didn't all go like planned. Not exactly. It doesn't always go like that. Maybe I don't know. Do you know what could have been done differently? What could have the guidance counselor done differently? Any ideas? Anna was maybe a bit like this guy. The guidance counselor had very good intentions, but it didn't really work out. I think we can come to that a bit later on. I don't know about Anna. She might be one of these introvert type of persons. You know these types, extroverts and introverts. The extroverts, the direction of their energy goes outwards, and they think aloud also to clarify their own thoughts. So they talk without too much thinking first. They react quickly and they are active in interaction. But then we have the introverts, and the direction of their energy is more inwards, and they want to form an opinion and be sure about their opinion before they express anything aloud. And you know that takes time. They react more slowly than the extroverts, and they might seem quite passive in interaction. So I don't know. Maybe Anna was like this. But if you think about the introverts and that you are naturally like that, then it could be almost a tragedy when studying or working online, because you sort of exist for other people only when you give a sign, if you leave a footprint of some kind. But if you're totally silent and almost invisible there, just a name on a list somewhere, then you don't really exist to other people. So the introverts and extroverts is something that you are by nature. But then I think that most of you agree that we also behave differently from situation to situation. I've written there contextual silence. It could be also maybe situational silence. That might be a better word in English for that. So it depends on the context and it depends on the situation how you behave. So for example, quite many people are different or behave differently. They could be more talkative, for example, and more participating when in face-to-face situations. And they might be more silent, maybe because they are slower in online situation. I don't know, it could be so. Or then it could be also vice versa, because I know that we have some students for whom it would be impossible to enter a classroom, a face-to-face classroom, traditional classroom that was crowded with people. They couldn't even enter the room, let alone speak to others, due to some mental problems or social problems. But they might be really sociable on the net when they are able to express themselves by writing. So it might be also about that kind of things. Now I'm trying to see the chat as well. There's a good discussion going on. Very good. And I think that it's quite important for the, in this case, for the guidance counselor, but it could be also the teacher, online teacher, or for example, a chair who is having an online meeting, to also stand a bit the silence. So if there are no reactions immediately, it might be worth waiting for a while, because there might be people who are just forming their opinion. They are not ready to express themselves yet. in quite a lot of environments like this one, this Adobe Connect, there I can see that Alastair Krielman and Johanni are typing. So I know that there's soon something coming up. WhatsApp is the same, and Facebook, the Facebook chat, how is it called? The Messenger. There you can see that the other person is right now writing something. So it's a sign that something might soon come up. So I think it's very important to also give time for the students, because there might be students who might have really important things to say and opinions to and comments to express. But while they are thinking about it and formulating the sentences, how to express it, somebody else might have already said it or written it in the chat. And then it seems that, okay, this person is, you might even interpret that he or she is not interested because he or she is not taking part, but somebody else was just quicker. So it could be the case. But then how to identify what kind of guidance each student needs? That's a skill. You have to, I think at least to some extent, that is a skill that you are able to learn, but I don't know if it's ever possible. But there are some tools and some solutions that we have found important. A very simple thing is making a deal with a student at the beginning. So it could be really the very beginning of his or her studies, when the guidance counselor is having the very first discussion with a new student. They could make a deal that, for example, the guidance counselor will contact the student every second week on Mondays, for example, something like that. And then both knows that this is what we've agreed on, and it will be okay for both of us. But if somebody says that it's okay, you don't have to worry about me, and I know myself and I know what I can do, and I'd rather study on my own, and I will ask you when I need help, then I think that should be respected as well. Of course, the guidance counselor she'll have to follow and see if the student is proceeding in his or her studies. And if it seems to be doing fine, you can see that from the in the learning environment that assignments are being done and degrees received. So no big worries. Asking the right questions is also a very important skill. Then in some cases, it's possible to get some background information from the students. So for example, some of our students are attending workshops, and the workshop coaches can give some information about the students, or the outreach youth workers or social workers, in some cases the parents. Most of our students are adults, so parents are not playing a big role, but some background information could be received. Then it would be very good if a guidance counselor had the skill and talent of reading between the lines. That's very good. The learning logs, we require all our students to keep a learning log on each course. So there you get more information. Then we get a lot of data from the learning platform. But then those students who simply disappear, who don't do their learning assignments, they don't complete their courses, and they don't reply to any messages through any channel, then I have to say that we don't really have much, not many possibilities to work with them, because we can't really go to their homes and knock at the door, because they might be living in, I don't know, Bangladesh or wherever. But the learning logs, I think they're quite important, because there at least part of the invisible becomes visible. So if the students write them properly, I as a teacher say properly, then you can get a lot more information what's happening behind the scenes, because the learning assignments there you don't see what happens there in the background, but in the learning logs you might get a better and bigger picture of the student, what kind of a learner he or she is. Then, like I said, we get a lot of information from the learning platform. At least you can see if the student is proceeding and completing the tasks and receiving grades and so. And a lot of other things as well, but at least at the moment, this is a bit of a work of a detective, because at the moment, in our case, there's a lot of data, but the guidance counselors have to dig it up from various sources, various places at this moment, and that takes a lot of time. But then learning analytics could come to help in this respect, because the idea of the learning analytics is to visualize the data collected, for example, from the learning platform. And it could help, for example, in a way that, for example, in this picture, there are these clusters of, let's say that these characters there, they are students. And for example, in this visualization, the group of 5 students there on the lower right corner, they could be, according to these analytics, they could be students who are at the risk of dropping out. So there we clearly see that, okay, these are the students that we should now give more time of the guidance counselors, for example. But that is hopefully near future, but in the future we will get more help of learning analytics. We are working on that at the moment. Then what we already have in our learning environment is what we call flagging. So the guidance counselors, or also the teachers, they are now able to attach a flag to a student. The student doesn't see it himself or herself, but other guidance counselors and teachers see that somebody is flagged, which means that for some reason or other, the student counselor, guidance counselor, or the teacher is a bit worried about this student. So the others know that there's something going on now, and it might be a good idea to pay a bit more attention to this, especially this student. Then peer support is very important, and we have learned that it's very important for most of the students to have the feeling of belonging somewhere. So even if they didn't interact with each other, with their fellow students, it might be really important for them to see that there are other people online working at the same, studying at the same time on the same course. And it might be really important for them to know that they belong somewhere, belong to a group, even if they never spoke to each other. These are things that we quite often forget because they are not visible. And then something concrete that we are doing and working on at the moment, we are going to design and create an application, which is actually a student matchmaker. Because the idea is that with the help of this application, our students would have the possibility to find their peers, to find and identify and find other students that are, for example, interested in the same things, having the same hobby, living in the same area, having a similar life situation, for example, having small kids or whatever it could be. So through this, or with the help of this application, it would be possible for them, if they want, to find each other, find their peers, and then if they want to, for example, agree on meeting up face-to-face with other students. if they are living in the same area, for example, and then do something together, study together, and so on and so forth. Because at the moment, it's quite difficult for our students to find each other. Of course, it depends on how much they want to tell others about themselves. But we hope that this application will make it easier for them to find each other. But that is also future. We just have given in an application for that, and we hope to get the funding to be able to create this. I think every story needs a happy end. Do you agree? Do you want to see another short film which has a happier end? No one says anything? Oh, we will see it anyway. Karina wants to see it. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Okay, I think at least most of you have seen it now, the happy end, until the happy end. I'm not sure why. Maybe there was a delay, so it didn't start at the same time with everybody. At least I chatted with some of my colleague who is attending the webinar, who is attending the webinar through mobile phone, and it started there a bit later. But there's a link if somebody wants to see it also afterwards. I think I will change the layout, the screen view again, so that we have more space for discussion. But now I can see that the earlier discussion stayed on the earlier layout. So we'll go back there because I think there might be some valuable stuff there. So we'll go there, and I'll just make it bigger here. Okay, so what do you think? What kind of thoughts and ideas did all this on any of this that we've been telling and talking today? You had some nice discussion there on the way while I was talking, but even if I'm a woman, I'm not always able to concentrate on several things at the same time, so I'm not sure about everything that went on the chat. Is there something that you would like to raise from there? Thank you, Alistair. That comforts me. I totally agree with Johanni. Counseling is not a hard science. Comprises of several aspects and dimensions. Thank you, Deirdre, for the comment. That's what Johanni is writing there now. That's something very concrete. But of course, it might be that the students also, they change during their studies. So if you at the beginning make a deal, the situation and their need might change on the way. So of course, you have to be flexible about that as well. And some of the students, they might not know themselves so well. So they might think at the beginning that, oh, I don't need any support and I can manage on my own. But that might not be the whole truth. I think what Elizabeth is writing there, as a teacher, you have to remember that people are different. I think that goes for guidance, counseling, and that goes for leadership, that goes for any interaction and communication between people. That's very true. I also agree with Johanni that I don't think that the students should be left totally alone, even if they express a wish for this. But then you also should avoid the fate of Anna. Yeah, most people want to be seen and want to be noticed. That's true. Hey, if there's anybody who would like to take the microphone, I can give you the voice if you want to be heard as well, not only seen. So just let me know. So it all comes down to respect. Yes. Mia was asking there earlier what kind of experience you have between the different channels. What about if you're working with students, which channels do they prefer to use? Do you have some experience on that? Would be nice to hear. Our experience is a bit that quite many, at least the younger people, they are not so familiar with, or they are familiar with email, but it's not the most natural channel for them to use. They don't check their mail. Annukka is saying there in Finnish that there are people who for whom it's possible to get close and get attached. I don't know if it's the correct way to say it in English, only to few people. And when working online, it might be even more difficult to find the people that you are easy and safe with.
Maybe I can join you on the audio.
Yeah, please do.
I find it hard to be a silent learner, actually.
Yeah.
I'm one of your earlier category. I just talk. Um, no, I think the your idea earlier of having a flexible approach to the channels. I think you have to be able to let them use the channel that they feel comfortable with, and I think that's very important. There is no magic channel that works for everybody. There simply is no such thing, and I think you have to accept that. I think to be if you can accept that there are different channels and be able to use them for different people, then that's excellent. Though it's difficult when it comes to a massive course when you've got sort of thousands of people or
Yeah,
hundreds.
of
If
course. Yeah.
you can have a one guidance counselor per student, then you can choose the channels. But the more there are, the harder it gets.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, in this context, when we talk about guidance and counseling and the discussions, they are mainly one-to-one. So there, it's easier to, of course, to choose the channel or let the students to choose the channel. Yeah.
But I think a lot is to do with getting people to feel safe, and it can take time for some people to get that feeling of safety and support, and that they feel ready to make a contribution.
Yeah.
But we have to
Mm.
let them watch and let them learn, and it takes longer for some people to learn the rules of interaction in a particular forum or course. But with a bit of encouragement, I think it needs a little bit of slow, quiet encouragement. They generally start contributing.
Yeah.
And then maybe first just to one person, and then later in the more public or a wider context. Yeah, Johan is saying feel that you can participate, but you're not pushed.
Yeah. Exactly. Mm.
If you want to dance, you do it when you want to, but it's no fun if you are pushed.
Annukka is just giving an example where she thinks that the student felt him or herself safe because the student told Annukka is one of our guidance counselors, that he's a bit sick and that he or she is traveling and he or she was asking for help. So you don't tell these personal things about yourself unless you feel safe and you trust your guidance counselor. Yeah. The learning styles. Could one of our guidance counselors answer to that? Nowadays, there's been a lot of discussion about the learning styles and a lot of criticism.
Yeah, that's a dynamite subject for many pedagogy experts who don't believe. But this is a fine example of. But then again, I think there are preferences for how we want. We have preferences for how we like things presented and how we want to work. I think we do. I think we do have preferences. Maybe if this theory of learning styles is controversial nowadays, but I think we all have ways that we prefer better than others. And as the Anna film showed, it was so clear. I know several people like that who just sort of, I like just to sit down with the book and, really work with it. And I don't want somebody disturbing me and I don't want to be forced to do stuff. I just want to concentrate. And that's a preference, and I can respect that.
Yeah. So it means that as a guidance counselor and as a teacher as well, you have to be flexible. Otherwise, I don't know if you can be successful in your work if you don't have the flexibility. Okay. Anastasia is still writing something. I would like to ask you one more question. But for that, I need to change the view, and I seem to have made a mistake with the chat room because it didn't travel with me, the chat.
You have to load up the same chat to all the. But that's
I forgot to do that. Yeah.
I just put in a link to Gilly Salmon's 5-stage model for student engagement, which is if you haven't looked at that, have a look at it. It's very very nice.
Okay, thanks, Anne. Bye. I will change the layout once more. Mia, if you finish what you're typing, and then I will change because I have one more very small task for you. It will take you 3 seconds. The pod there. About the silent and participating learners, what about today? Were you today in this webinar a silent and receiving learner or more an active and participating? At the beginning, we had the question asking, are you in general, when you're online, do you regard yourself as a silent learner or a participating learner? But how was it today? Because there it was at the beginning almost 50-50, but today we seem to have more silent learners. Is that how it's going to be? Yeah, almost the double. So annoying that there is no vote button.
Just click on the.
Okay, I think. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Alistair.
No, just click on the button, and we've got quite a few votes there. I think everyone has.
Yeah. But okay, I think our time is almost up. I think it's time to say thank you very much for listening and for also active participation. And I hope to see you again. Alistair, we are organizing quite soon another webinar. Would you like to market that at this point?
I hadn't expected that. Wait a second.
It came by surprise.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Just a second. Oh, I pressed the wrong.
Just if you want to use the opportunity.
I would like.
But we will find it in any case.
There's another webinar on the 2nd of June. It's not quite about this, but it's about collaboration in webinars, collaborative and interactive learning in webinars with experience from partners in a project about webinars that we've been running. So if you want to sign up for that, there's a link, there's a description of the session, and you just click on a link to register.
Very good. Thanks a lot. So you've got your marketing slot there as well. So thank you, everybody, and have a nice afternoon and evening and spring and everything. All good things like that.